Do not keep telling your young adults and even your youth, you're the future of the church. They are your now, guys. They're your now church.
Welcome to the Propel podcast, inspiration and innovation to grow your church. I'm your host, Larry Woodsell. If God has given you big dreams for growing His kingdom, then this is the podcast for you. Our goal is to offer practical training for effective evangelism in the Seventh-day Adventist ministry context, but we know that the principles we talk about are applicable in many other churches as well. So wherever you're doing ministry, welcome to the Propel podcast. We are just a few short weeks away from the 2026 Propel Conference. I am so excited for this year. If you like the podcast, you're going to love these 4 days of inspiration and innovation for church growth. We're going to be in Silver Spring, Maryland, April 12 to 15 with some amazing speakers like Alex Bryant, Rick McEdward, Cami Oatman, Steve Letty, Tim Matting, Daniel Hall, and a dozen other speakers. Go reserve your seat right now at propelconference.org, and I'm looking forward to seeing you there. This episode features Danielle Farrell, a dedicated ministry leader with over 20 years of experience in children's and youth ministries, event planning, logistics, and music. At the time of the recording, she served as the young adult director at her church in Phoenix and is the founder of the Salt and Light Project, a ministry empowering young adults in their faith. Originally from Alaska and Washington State, Danielle now calls Arizona home. Beyond ministry, she enjoys spending time with her children and grandchildren, travel planning, and freelance voiceover work. However, her greatest passion is guiding young people to Christ and encouraging them to share their faith with confidence. In this presentation, Danielle Farrell shares lessons from engaging young adults in ministry, emphasizing the importance of prayer and community and effective communication. She discusses the challenges faced in building a young adult ministry in your local church, the need for organized communication, and the significance of authenticity and personalization in outreach efforts. We're going to hear from Danielle in just a moment. Before we get to today's presentation, I want to thank this episode's sponsor, the Salt and Light Project, a nonprofit on a mission to lead young adults to know Christ and to be a light for others as they discover their identity and purpose through His Word. This organization serves by actively engaging in opportunities to volunteer time and resources for young adults in their community and beyond. Through acts of kindness in every interaction, donating time at local nonprofits, and providing support in their community, the Salt and Light Project really helps young adults grow in their faith. You can learn more at saltandlightproject.org. Okay, with that, here is Danielle Farrell's Tuesday afternoon breakout track from the 2025 Propel Conference, and her topic, Connecting and Growing, Strengthening Young Adult Ministries.
So this whole idea of coordination is not new to me. I've been doing it for a long time. I just didn't realize that God was going to pull me into a space to be directing me towards a path where I was also going to be coordinating and leading now young adults. I moved to Arizona, and after I moved to Arizona, a lifelong Adventist, you heard the background, I spent my entire life as an Adventist, but I came to a new place that didn't have anything, meaning I didn't know anybody. I knew no churches, I didn't know anything about where I was at. So my husband and I started making our way across the different state, or the city, to kind of, okay, let's check this out for a little, okay, let's check this out, okay, let's check this out, let's check this out. But I also went online to go find out a little bit more about these churches, and I'm sure you know generally what I was met with, right? Okay, now I moved with a young adult. My baby was still in the household. She was 19 years old when we made our move. She had been through the COVID years, didn't get a graduation, was in college online for a year and a half. You guys know what our kids went through. You know what we as a church went through, as adults went through, but these kids had it even harder. It was rough for all the different ages. But these young adults are now not adulting very well. They are really, really struggling to get to that next step. But I had a young adult that I was at a point where I was having to check in on her regularly in her room to make sure she was breathing. Like, is she okay? Because she's not well. And I knew she wasn't well. But we made a move. She wanted to be a part of it. She was excited for it. She was going to be enrolling in Grand Canyon University. She was excited to make new friends, get on a campus, be in the sunshine. So she was very optimistic about this move. And as a mother and as a parent, or as somebody who just loves on our youth and our young people, we see them struggling and we just break. We're just broken people as we just are hoping and praying and, dear God, and what do we do and how do we help these young people? So I'm a mother now, not like it was a new thing. I'm a mother, moved to Arizona with this young adult who is in severe depression. She's in severe struggle, right? As I saw her go through struggle, I knew as a mom, she needed connected to a community and she needed connected to a Christian community, and not just a Christian community, but an Adventist Christian community. I was very fortunate. I had a daughter pretty convinced and connected to Adventism. She wasn't struggling with that piece of her denomination. She was just struggling with her community, her friends, and her connections. So I moved to Arizona, start looking for churches that were going to meet the needs of my young adult. Were they meeting the needs of my young adult? Well, let's see. Let's check it out. We landed finally by God's direction at a church called Camelback Seventh-day Adventist Church. It's on the east side of Phoenix. It's kind of near Scottsdale area, if you guys are familiar at all with that area. Beautiful church. It felt right. It felt home. We walked in. We were like, this is our place. We don't know why we're here yet, but it's our place. What I started hearing was this. Oh, young adults are so active. Oh, yeah, young adults do all this stuff. Young adults, oh yeah, they have this thing. Hey, young adults do this once a month. Yeah, young adults do this. Yeah, they got together last week. They had an event that did this. Now that sounds really promising, does it not? Doesn't that sound good? Are you hearing that with me? My daughter was gonna have a community. I was so excited for this community that my daughter was gonna be able to be a part of. I knew she needed the connection. I knew she needed godly connections. So what did I discover in a short period of time? Here's how it kind of went. Let me unpack this for you. We would find out the night of that there was an event at so-and-so's house, okay? Who is so-and-so? Where is their house? Don't know. We would find out a week before, and bless the pastor at the time that was there, really did work. So we're not even gonna discredit how much the pastoral staff works to try and get young people engaged. But they're also flooded. They do a lot, and this is where all of us come in. Pastor was texting her, hey, you want to come to da-da-da-da. Let me ask you this. My young adult who just moved to a brand new area, knows nobody, who's an introvert, do you think that young girl is going to show up at this event because pastor said, yeah, we'd love to have you there? So she didn't go anywhere. We would learn about events after the fact. We would see things afterwards, right? But nowhere could I see that she could actually be involved. So I spent probably the first about year we were at this church doing a lot of this, watching, observing, paying attention, and asking my young daughter questions. Now, fortunately, I do have a good relationship with my young daughter who would be open about what she's feeling and what she's experiencing and all of these things. So fortunately, I was able to get a lot of insight information, right? With that, what I started to observe, we have a communication breakdown. Problem 1. Problem 2, we have a relational breakdown. So I worked really hard to try and convince some of these older young adults who I had had connections with in the church, hey, you know what would be really great is if maybe you reach out, right? Go ask, trying to help them to understand, my daughter is not showing up at your event until you have a relationship with her. I was brand new in the church. I didn't know anybody. I wasn't going to be able to come up to somebody new and be like, hey, can you please invite my daughter to this thing right here? Can you go make friends? That was a really awkward and weird position for me to be in. But of course, as a mom, that's what I wanted to do. Wasn't going to work that way. So how was I going to make it work? As somebody who does strive to communicate, it is something I really do appreciate. I don't do it perfect all the time, guys. I'm not here to come at you and tell you this is how you communicate and exactly like this every time and I know the best way. I don't, but there's a reason they call me Danielle. Okay, guys, I do communicate well, clearly, and loudly. This is not my gift. This is God's gift. He presented to me and said, here, go use this. So my next step, what are the problems? Problem is there's no single way to communicate. What did I find on the church website? And to be clear, the church website looks good, by the way. The front cover looks excellent. I don't have a beef with any of that navigations work. But if I went to go look at the young adult ministry, what was I going to find? Nothing. It says young adult ministry. Do I know who my contact is? Do I know who's leading it? Do I know when they meet? Do I know what events are going on? Do I have any way to volunteer if I'm a member and I just want to go support young adults? Absolutely not. None of that was happening on the very basic level of our church website. So I had to start unpacking things, figuring things out. And it became clear to me I needed to work on how to strengthen this ministry that is called young adult ministry. I'm going to ask you guys, why did you choose this room today? Why are you here? So this title captures you. We want to strengthen our young adults, right? We want to give them so we're going to go through a couple of different kind of sections, if you will, today. First, I do want to spend some time to talk about kind of specifically my story, the things that I've changed, the things that happened at Camelback Church, what has taken place, how it's created some growth and momentum in the young adult space. And then secondly, we will actually go through some practical kind of tools and applications, okay? Some points and some things for you, kind of just some things to write down and take with you. What I want you to hear from this, most importantly, I'm not the authority. Nobody in this building is some authority on this. Our authority comes exclusively from God. So once we are in a place where our hearts are in our surrendered state, we have said, God, this is yours, but you know you have a passion. You know you see the hurt. You know you see that, like you said, there's no place for them. I had a conversation yesterday with Ernesto, who's leading another class down here, and the conversation they're doing here, and I think some of you may even know, in Washington Conference, is to create a space for the young adults to meet up. And this is a message that I have pressed into my local church administration and to my elders as well. Do not keep telling your young adults and even your youth, you're the future of the church. They are your now, guys. They're your now church. They're not your future church. They're existing right here, right now. And the churches that are thriving is not to say, let's kick out our older generation to replace them with, that's not what needs to happen. But there has to be those connections and bringing in those young people into that space. And we'll talk a little bit about ways that we can strengthen that ministry. One of the things that I did when I moved to Camelback, we had a need, organized communication. So I came to the pastor and I said, hey, we have no young adult Sabbath school class right now. How do we solve that problem? What do we do about that? Well, we don't have enough teachers. Has anybody heard this? Anybody got this? There's just not enough people to volunteer. People don't really want to. Oh, it's so hard to get them to do. That wasn't met well for me, who's a problem solver. I was like, cool, all right, well then we'll get teachers, right? Like that was my next step. Well, we'll get teachers. There's also something that I feel very, very, very passionate about and very confident about. I want to relay to you guys in here. How many of you truly believe people don't want to help? Do you truly believe that's where we're at in our church today? They do not know how to help. Exactly right. They don't know how to help. They haven't gotten that communication, those dots put together to even understand what the ministry is, what the needs of the ministry are, how they can be of assistance. And until you articulate that very well, there's no place for them. So they're going to continue to do what I have done many times in my life, which is sit on the bench and not volunteer, not raise my hand, not do the thing. But until it was clearly laid before me, here is the need. Do you think you could help with this need? I see a talent in you. I think you could help with this particular need. Then I can go, I understand the job. I know what is needed. I know the time commitment because it's been laid out. So getting those connections down, this need for organized communication. Now, God is He's a God of communication and order, is he not? The press is a powerful means to move the minds and the hearts of the people. Through it, we can reach multitudes and convey the message of truth. Now, this was written back in a time where the press was what at that time? That was your means of communication. That was mass communication, right? This is how stuff got out to people. So let's just fast forward this to today real quick. The social media is a powerful means to move the minds and hearts of people. Let's back that up. The direct message is a really powerful means. So our text message, our direct messages, our social media messages, our emails. Guys, your young adults aren't using email, just so you know. They're not using email. Now, we still ask them for the email. We still put them on communications. Don't get me wrong. Don't stop doing that. But if we're relying on email to reach our 25, 6-year-olds, 22-year-olds, they're not reading that email. And if you're sending them something that needs to be an email, please send them a text message too. Please check your email. Thanks. They're not gonna look otherwise. But if we replace this right here, the press is a powerful means. What other communications do we have? WhatsApp is a powerful means to communicate with our people, but we need to start with some organized way of communication. And we just didn't have it. Let's read this together. The Lord said, as if when people asking, are people speaking the same language, they have begun to do this. Look at what they're creating. Look at what they're doing. Look at how much they are accomplishing. Then nothing they plan to do will be impossible for them. God had no choice but to confuse the languages because it was that powerful. Guys, we have such a power in our language and our communication and how we reach people. But what's changed from 20 years ago to today? 30 years ago from today? What's changed in communication when we're talking about our young adults? There is so much information. Do we have information overload going on? But our young people who are still developing their minds and they're still getting their feet and their foundations and figured out, they're really struggling with the amount of information coming at them, right? So, but our methods have changed. We're not printing newspapers. We're not making phone calls with landlines that are tucked in here. All right, we don't communicate the same way. And honestly, our young people are not communicating on emails, and this is the only way. And oh my word, get on my little high horse for a second. How else are they not communicating? Friends, I don't want you to stop putting things in your bulletins, but I need you to hear this. Your bulletin has to be online. Your bulletin has to be in digital. It has to be in some sort of quick, easy newsletter, small bites. Here's how to access it. Now, that doesn't guarantee your young people are reading it, by the way. We're not going to lie. It doesn't mean they're going to read it. But you know how they're definitely not going to read it? When you've exclusively handed a piece of paper to them to read in their bulletin, okay? I don't have problems with bulletin inserts, by the way. I have no beef with them. I have a beef with them being the only way we can communicate. We are dealing with what? Digital natives. For those of you in this room, we didn't grow up with this. I didn't just learn this one day to be like, oh yeah, this is how it was. We always have the cell phone. But it wasn't not a regular occurrence to be carrying cell phones. And even if you were you text messaging regularly? No, remember the old QWERTY phones where you had to like several times on the same, right? Text messages were as short form as you possibly could because it took a long time to get a few words out. That's not how it goes now. Now I go push my microphone and be like, hey, honey, I'll be home in about 10 minutes and da-da-da-da, send. And I've not even touched a single key on there. They are digital natives. 84% of adults ages 18 to 29 use at least one social media platform daily, and most prefer text-based communications over voice calls. Okay, backing up to my church, my daughter is here. I've got bad communication going on, or not bad communication, but a lack of relationship. My introverted daughter is not showing up at some event, okay? This pastor had taken another call, was out of the church. We were out of this family and young adult pastor. And this is where I was like, all right, ready to step in there. This is where I came to the pastoral staff and said, we need first and foremost, we need a young adult Sabbath school. We didn't have the basics. What I found in our church is the very basics weren't even being met. There were young adults attending church, by the way. They were there. I saw them fairly regularly. But where were they coming when they came in the morning? Where were we even inviting them to? So I said, Pastor, we have to have a young adult classroom. We don't have enough teachers. We were there, right? Backing up, we were there. No teachers. I said, okay, we're going to problem solve. So I dove right into ministry placement. I started asking people. I was up at the pulpit. I was giving my number out left and right. Text me, call me, let me know if you're interested in any capacity, even if it's not in young adults. I want to get you placed. Let's make sure you're involved, because our entire children's ministry was lacking teachers. I was like, well, we got to solve this problem. First and foremost, youth and young adult. There's many opportunities for youth and young adult to be operating together in capacities and events in certain spaces. I had 28-year-olds and 13-year-olds, and this was not a good communication. There was absolutely no way that we could have a Bible study on Sabbath morning with young adults with these different, right? Okay, is there anything wrong with having youth and young adults together? No, not for a social gathering or event or a thing where I need you guys to all help with something. We just started an initiative at our church that's a youth and young adult led Sabbath, where we're putting them in charge of everything, but we're absolutely including youth and young adults, right? It's all the gamut. I actually had an 8-year-old tell the children's story, so we're rewinding down to any age that they want to participate. But it is predominantly for that purpose. Now we can collectively put them together, because my youth, who's a really good, great guitarist, absolutely better be on that praise team with my 28-year-old, great musician or praise team leader, right? We're putting those connections together. But our Sabbath morning, I needed them to absolutely be separate. I needed them to have their own space, feel like they could have a Bible study that pertained to where they were at in their time and place. Came to the church and said, all right, we got to do this. We did. We solved that problem. Step one. Then we started advertising like mad. How did we advertise, guys? Where did we put it? I have to get information, okay? How do I get information? I got to start making friends, man. I was making friends left and right. Shortly after we began this, I'll give you a little example. I was in my VBS Sabbath attire, looking like a crazy lady, coming in to do some of the songs, highlighting what we were doing for the week. Come in the back, and I see this young man sitting in the very back row I'd never seen before. And of course, keep in mind, I've just kind of stepped into this. I'm gonna gather my young adults, right? Like, I'm in a new church, but I don't know any of you. I'm gonna find you, I'm gonna gather you in, and we're gonna make a space for you. But I'm like, I don't know that kid. Never seen that kid. So I'm walking, he's like sitting face, towards the front. And I walk up, and I go, hey, I'm the young adult director here at Camelback. I don't know I've met you before. I said, what's your name? AJ. AJ, good to have you here. Where are you from? Are you visiting? Are you da-da-da? No, I just moved here. I just got a job here. I'm from Texas. My family's from Texas. AJ, that's great. I said, would you mind if I brought you up? I have 2 people right there I actually just want to introduce you to real quick. Okay? My daughter, who's introverted, but she knows what mom's doing, so she's on board. She's like, I can handle it. And fortunately, praise the Lord, her boyfriend, who is extroverted. AJ, have you met Eric? Da-da-da-da-da, right? And I brought him up front. When I asked her, I said, is it okay if we do this? And he's like, why not? I said, he goes, it's a risk, but we'll take it. I said, AJ, that's perfect. I'm supposed to be up front, by the way. I got the VBS attire looking. I got crazy hair going on, because you know VBS, guys. You've been there. You know it looks a little nutty for the kids. And I look like nutso lady hauling this 20-something-year-old kid to the front to go introduce him to a couple more of my young adults. AJ is still an active part of our church. That was about 8-9 months ago, not quite a year ago. He's not only an active member of our church, but he's one of the ones I can regularly call on. I can text him and I'd be like, hey, can you help with this? We have an event happening actually this next weekend I'm not there for. Text AJ. AJ, would you be willing to? Yep, I'm there. That didn't happen by accident, friends. So I started building relationships. But you know what the first thing that I did? What's your phone number? Would it be okay if I have your phone number? And kids are good at this. I open my contact and I literally hand them the phone. Can you, thanks, do that for me? I don't even plug it in. I make them type their stuff. Funny side anecdote to that, AJ actually mistyped his number. I actually initially had been trying to reach him for like 3 weeks. And I'm like, kids ghosted me. Finally, I see him again. I was like, AJ, is everything okay? He goes, yeah. I said, have you gotten my text? What text? I'm like, oh no. So I look and I go, is that your number? He goes, no. I go, you did that. Fix that for me, sir. But what we're doing is we need to build a communication process. And the first way to do that is what? Make the contact. Keep in mind, I'm a little bit nuttier than most people. I will walk up to a complete stranger and ask them for their number. I recognize that that's not always maybe the best way. Maybe it is. Maybe that boldness is what God is asking us to do. I'm not going to tell you that you need to be as crazy as I am walking up to random people and asking them for their numbers. However, if you do not have the information, I've had not a single person turn me down, by the way. Not a single person has said to me, nobody hesitated. I'm like, yeah, sure. Right? And they send me their stuff. It's super easy to get information, by the way, guys. It really is. You just ask for it. With this information, what did I start doing? Building my little spreadsheet. I've got all my numbers, my contacts, everything. Now, what am I going to do with it? I want to communicate with them, right? Group message of some sort. Now, we could go down the line about 800 different ways that we could do that because there's a million platforms to get to the same end result. But you need to consolidate that information and have it available, readily available for you guys, okay? So build a communication process. Collect information. Does your ministry capture visitor contact info effectively? Are you collecting your information? Are you getting it? Are you gathering it? Who is that person? Okay? I want you to be thinking through in your space, who might be really good, like the nutty me who's extroverted and happy to go ask information. Who can be somebody or somebodies that can collect information for you? Who can boldly ask for the information? What's your name? What's your number? I had to start training my few young adults that were my staples in my church to do that, where they would tell me they were so excited that they met somebody new. They were so excited that somebody came in and they invited him to the class and they did their thing, right? But what happened? They left. And I'd ask them, well, did you get a number? Oh, no. Okay. How are we going to invite them back? We don't know where they're from. So collect the information. Really, really important that you have some way to capture the information. Hey, side note, none of these steps are anything revolutionary. You know where you can find them? Your church manual. Church manual actually lays out these steps. Maybe they're not articulated exactly like this, but really the church manual is an excellent blueprint. I actually joked with a member recently about, if only there was like, I don't know, a guide or like a map or like a blueprint about how to do ministry effectively or something. I encourage you, I implore you for all of the ministries and everything that you want to see in your church growth, take a moment, read through the church manual. Effective communication is written out very, very well there, okay? That's where a lot of these steps come from. So number 2, assign the roles. Create an interest coordinator or delegate young adults to greet and engage new visitors. We talked about this a little bit. So as the young adults would come back to me and be like so excited, we talked to this new person. What I get now, because I've laid out the map to 2 or 3 that I know are good at this, I can't assign this to everybody. I have a young man who was born and raised in that church. He is as introverted as the day is long. I can't get him to, and it's okay, I don't need him to. I don't want him to. I don't need that kid to be the one that goes up front, that speaks, that does but on a quiet one-on-one, oh, he's great. If I can just bring somebody to the group that he's with, he'll have a conversation with him. But you know where I get my numbers and all my contacts? My young adults, because I've sent them out to do exactly that. I have told them, when you meet somebody new, text me their contact. Give me a name, give me a number, and any information that you may have gathered in that conversation. That lets me do some follow-up. As the young adult director, what do I want to do? I want to love on them. I want to make sure that they know what's happening. I want to get them involved in our communications, whether it's our Instagram channel or whether it's our WhatsApp group or whether I actually have, we'll talk about in a second, I have a text message notification system set up through a company called Flocknote. That's not a plug, but there's about 100 of them you can choose from. Get them in a notification system so I can quickly get information out so they can be reminded of things really fast. But this is what I do with their information. And then at the very basic, do you know what else? Quick text message, randomly. How many times do you not have a way to communicate with that person? Maybe you don't even know their number. Maybe you don't know really where they're at, but you met them at church, you saw them at one time, and you went, God's pressing on my heart to talk to this person, to pray for this person. Well, fortunately, because I have been so diligent about collecting contact information, I pick up my phone in those same moments. When the Holy Spirit presses on my heart to pray for X, I pick up that phone and I'm immediately sending a message. Hey, I just want you to know I'm praying for you this week. Is there anything specific I can pray for? I just want you to know that you're loved, you're cared for. That's it, right? Very unassuming. I'm not asking him for information. I didn't text him only when I needed him to volunteer for things, by the way. I've texted them regularly to remind them how much I care about them. That is a role. But get your young adults to know the task. I've walked into the church before, seen a new person that I've been connecting with on socials that I have never met before. I'll get one of my other young adults and go, see that kid over there? This is what I know. And they're off. And they go invite them to go sit down with them in their group or whatever. This did not happen by accident. It's because we had to teach them and we had to train them and we had to delegate to them what is the task. Find your people, get your task at hand. Number 3, personal touch. Ensure visitors are introduced to at least one other young adult or leader before they leave. Something I tell my young adults regularly, I'll gather them in all day long, okay? I'll do this because this is just fun for me and I enjoy it. I love looking around my church and seeing new people I've never talked to and gone up and go, hi, my name is da-da-da-da. I'm the young adult director here at Camelback. Tell me your story. What do you hear? What brought you to the church? I have a few good questions I ask. I like how they're worded because they're not quite so hard. What do you do for work? What do you do for a living? And I don't like those, but I do say, hey, what keeps you busy during the week, right? What keeps you busy? What entertains you? What kind of things make you excited? I ask questions like that. They're usually pretty good with those answers. So I remind my young adults all the time as I'm nurturing my leaders, right? And you only need 1 or 2 guys. You just gotta start small. They're gonna help you nurture more, okay? But I get my 1 or 2 really solid core group, and it's expanded. It's not anymore 1 or 2. It's like 5 or 6 or 7 that I can core group. I know I can always go to them. But what I've done is I've made sure that they know every time I've come and told them I can reel them in, but they're not staying because of me. They're staying because of you. So it's critical that you develop that relationship with them, that you go out of your way to invite them. I got them, they regularly, yeah, let's go to Topgolf, and I'll check in with my leaders, with my ones that I've tasked, and I'll say, hey, have you checked in with AJ recently? I haven't seen him at church for a while. Oh yeah, no, he's good. And they'll give me the update on the friends. That means they're doing the job. They understood the task, okay? 5 keys to effective communication. Authenticity. Be unoffendable. Guys, you gotta be unoffendable when you're working with youth and young adults. Sometimes they're hard. Sometimes they're tricky. But being honest, transparent, empathetic. This last one, sadly, I had to put in there because I've had to apologize to my young people more than once. I've had to come at them and say, look, guys, I don't know what I'm doing and I need you to know that. Not that that fixes all the problems, but I do need you to understand I am going to fail at this. I'm going to rub you wrong. I'm going to say something that doesn't make sense. I'm going to maybe miscommunicate something in some capacity, and I'm sorry that I did. I've had to come to my young adults and apologize more than one time. 90% of millennials and Gen Z prefer brands and individuals that exhibit honesty and transparency from a Sprout Social study in 2020. 90%, that's a really, really, really big number. That's like a lot of them. They are going to resonate really well with things that feel trustworthy, that look trustworthy, that are. And the only way to be really trustworthy is to be honest, is to be transparent, is to be that and authentic for your young people. Number 2, personalization. I use their names often. Personalization, use their name, ask about their lives, show that you see them as individuals. This is an important step, and I think we miss it a lot. How in the world are we going to build relationships if we have no idea what's going on in theirs? How are we going to reach their needs? How are we going to problem solve? We don't even know what the problem is. And we can't even begin to scratch the surface of what the problem is. There was another point that was pointed out. Innovation. To innovate, where do you start? You have to listen. You have to pay attention. So we have to create these relationships so that we have the opportunity to not come at them and tell them what they should or shouldn't be doing, but we have to listen to them. Let me give you a recent example. Our Sabbath school class was going swimmingly. Everything was well. Everything was great. And then like this weird implosion happened. I was like, what just took place? So I started going down the line. We gave it some time. We let the dust settle, right? We just let things lie for a few weeks. And I started calling individuals, my core people, the ones I knew I had built at least some semblance of a relationship with. And I said, hey, I just want to talk to you about this. What's going well? What's going wrong? What could we improve from your point of view? What are you seeing? This is a personal phone call. They answered, but I texted them first. Hey, I need to chat with you. Do you have time tonight? Like I made sure we can talk, right? Here is the common thread that I found as I started asking questions and listening. I didn't tell them anything. I literally just asked them to tell me what's going right, what's going wrong, what do we improve? The common thread I heard from them was it feels like we're being talked at a lot. And what I was observing in their classroom is I had some well-meaning, well-intentioned, but very misguided elders in my church that saw my young adults starting to create this thing that hadn't existed in our church for many years. And what did they feel the need to do? Well, I'm going to go be a... So they were coming into their classrooms and kind of dominating the conversations. I had well-meaning pastoral staff want to invite this guest speaker to come in and be a part and lead this discussion. And I said, I don't like that, but talk to me about what your plan is. And the plan was for there to be a discussion where they would just facilitate discussion on religious liberties. This was a really weird topic to reach young adults, but okay, pastor's coming to me, we're gonna make some concession, we'll figure out a game plan. So I laid out exactly what I would expect. I want a round table. I want them as part of the, they will not be ahead of the table. They will not be leading the discussion. They are part of the discussion, right? This is how it's gonna go. And there was a parade or I don't know, something happening. We ended up this long, I hate those mornings when you're in charge of stuff and you have to show up early and then you're late. So there I was running in late and this discussion is happening and I've got head pastor and religious liberties guy, like leading, like I'm leading, right? All eyes, and I'm going. So my husband and I sat down and we listened and I went, you just sat for 40 minutes and told them what to think. I didn't like that, but I also needed to hear from them. It was a problem. So I said, okay, sounds good. Had a hard conversation with the pastoral staff, had a hard conversation with the elder, and I said, these are not children. Amen. And I need the staff to stop treating them like children. They are young adults. They are adults first and foremost. Most of my young adults are living on their own. They have their own jobs. They have their own careers started. They have their own apartments. They're paying their own bills. These are not my high schoolers who are still living with mom and dad, finishing up high school. These are adults and we need to start treating them like adults. Do we still need to come alongside them and mentor them? Of course we do. But we're not going to tell them what to do. Show them that you can see them as individuals. 71% of consumers expect personalization and communication, which is why it's so important we personalize how we talk to them. Multiple forms of communication, combining your text, your video, and visuals to capture your attention. Now, whether you are building a social media profile to help kind of build interest in your community, which is also a good way to capture. We just can't get to everything in 75 minutes, so we're condensing. Podcasts, short videos, interactive content are most popular among what age? What's our demographic in our church? What do we claim young adults to be? 18 to 35. This is where they're hanging out, guys. There is a lot of other breakout sessions about social media, how to reach your church. All of those sort of practical steps can be used for young adult ministry as well. I'm not going to get into those details, but absolutely, this is also a good way to be able to capture them very quickly. Balanced information overload. We talked a little bit earlier about information, decision fatigue, information overload. Young people are getting information in what kind of form? Their brains are processing information like this. Do you know how fast they are assessing whether your information is good or not? like instantly. It's an instant assessment. If you do not get to the meat of what you need to get to in like real quick order, you're lost. This, my friends, is one of my biggest problems. I'm an over-communicator. This is a hard one for me, but I'm working on it, and it's getting better and better and better. I want you guys to also, when you're communicating, if you're sending out quick notifications to your young people because you've done the thing, you've gathered the information, you've delegated some young adults, you've got some people doing, right? You're gathering them in, you've got that step. Now getting out the information, bite-sized, quick, informative. Tame the time, the date, the place, make it happen quick. 60% of millennials and Gen Z report feeling overwhelmed by digital communication, according to a 2021 Asana survey. Are we surprised by this at all? Nope, not in the slightest. They are overwhelmed. They don't know what to do with everything coming at them, and it is so important that you are taking the opportunity to get them fast, clear, concise information because they're getting too much of it, and they need to process it really quick. Number 5, consistency builds trust. If you are using social medias to help gather and kind of highlight and get your community engagement, I want to see that you're posting regularly. I want to also see, but don't apply this just to social media because this can be applicable to all the different sources of communication. Apply it to text messaging. Apply it to a newsletter. Just be consistent. I don't care how you're doing it, but show consistency. What is the consistency doing for your young people? Young people right now don't have a lot in this world they're counting on. Their foundations are incredibly shaky right now. They need their church to not be the next shaky ground. That will be the fastest way they are exiting and going to their friend's house on Friday night or sleeping in on Sabbath morning, okay? Or whatever else that you guys are doing for your events and have no interest. That regular cadence of communication is what is going to build their trust with you. That's another way, aside from the one-on-one stuff, it's another way that you are going to be able to build your communication. Trust in peers and online communities remains very, very high. We have a trust issue in our entire nation right now. We are losing faith in our government. We are losing faith in our churches. We are losing faith in each other. We are losing faith in the socials. We don't know what the media is telling us if it's accurate or not. You as a church have to be a solid, trustworthy source of not only information, but communication. They have to be able to trust you. 300% in 6 months. So when I first started in young adults, I had maybe 2, 3 young adults that were like the core. They grew up in the church, right? They were there because this is all they had known, and so these were the people that were there. One of the things that as we created consistency, there was always a Sabbath school class. I was always advertising it. They always had a text notification on Friday that said, come, this is what we're studying, food. Food, guys. Give them food. These young adults who are living on their own, making ends meet by pennies, love free food, okay? I have a couple young men who show up for breakfast because they know there's gonna be food there, and they're so excited because they didn't eat the night before. Okay, food, 300% in 6 months. How did we do this? We did all the consistencies. So in about a 6-month period of time, with just nothing more than consistency. It wasn't a lot of effort, it was just keeping consistent. Here are the things. Talk to every single young person that came into that church as best as you can, okay? I guarantee you most of your churches will have young people you've never seen, you've never talked to, and you don't know why they're not coming to Sabbath school, okay? Talk to them. Find out why. I mean, that's not your first question. Hey, why aren't you coming to Sabbath school? Probably don't lead with that, okay? Just don't lead with that. That's not going to get you anywhere. Look around, identify them, introduce yourself. Say, hi, where are you guys from? It's good to have you here, right? Show the interest in them. It will go leaps and bounds. In about a 6-month period of time, by creating nothing more than a Sabbath school space, a clear, concise consistency in the way that we were communicating, a single place that they can resource and find stuff, right? I am, side note, working with the church to get things in there. That has not happened, but it's a work in progress, guys. It's a work in progress, guys. We hosted 2 things within a 6-month period of time, kind of some bigger things. We collaborated with a nearby church. We did a big camp out. We had 30 young adults show up for a church camp out. We provided it to them because we collaborated with 2 churches. It was actually nice on the budget. It was really easy to get that passed when I'm like, hey, well, we're splitting the food and we're splitting the costs. And the churches were like, that's great. We saved them money, but we also built some relationships with local churches. I want my young adults to know what other young people are out there. I don't have any interest in making certain that a young adult that walks into my Camelback Seventh-day Adventist Church is a baptized member of the Camelback Seventh-day Adventist Church that stays in the Camelback Seventh-day Adventist Church. My interest is in their heart and soul to be for God, and I don't care if they get that at a church down the road. In fact, I want them at a church down the road if that's where they feel connected, okay? So we collaborate very intentionally with other churches for that purpose. We also started doing young adult lunches, hosting them at houses, very similarly what a lot of you guys are doing. First out of the gate, we had 35, almost 40 young people show up. They were so excited to have a place to go after church. How did they know it was taking place, by the way? Remember way back up here at those steps? They had it in a text, but I also had their information. I'd been gathering it. I told them ahead of time. It was in our socials. It was posted on here. I had the church send it out in their communications. I touched them on so many different points, and then I reminded them the week before about 4 different times. Hey, you coming? I sent out personal texts, and I said, hey, I'd love to see you tomorrow. Haven't heard from you, making sure you're there. It takes some effort, guys, but they absolutely will show up. That's how I did it in 6 months. And here's what I want you to do. I want you to pray about it. I want you to spend time with God. I want you to really do some soul searching on how it is that God is going to lead you and your church to a place where you can absolutely grow your young adult audience, where your young adults want to be a part of it, that you've created not only a space, but the confidence. Start building their relationships with God. This is kind of our step 2. We get them in. Now we need to make sure, do you have any idea what a personal relationship with God looks like? So we're moving on. We've got young adult life groups going on. We have other things that we're doing to make sure that they're getting the fed part, right? They need that word. They need that personal relationship with God because as we know as we get older, that is the core of how they're going to stick around is because they knew God. Read again the church manual. You'll be surprised how much good meat you're going to find in there for how to actually create good processes for your church that applies to young adult ministry. Decide what platform or technology you will use as your primary source of information. Like I say, I use a service called Flocknote. That is one of 100 out there. It's an independent third party that creates a communication. I can do email blasts. I can do text message blasts, but I'm consolidating it. It's not a group message. If I have 2 or 3 that are working on an initiative, I'll just do a group text. WhatsApp is becoming one of the most common ways that young people are communicating right now. WhatsApp groups are very good, but it's also good for collaboration, not necessarily quick information. If I just want them to have information, I'm not sending out WhatsApp for the most part. I'm actually sending out a text notification. Figure out what technology or platform you're going to use as your primary source of information and stick with it. Keep it consistent. Gather and meet with your key leaders and early adopters because you need to cast that vision. Like I explained to you, I had some of my young people, I saw them and I went, this guy is going to be great at recruiting. This guy is going to be great at this. This girl is going to be great at this. I actually now have one of my young adults who's taken over the Sabbath school space for the first year. I made sure they had a leader and a teacher, and I was up there doing a lot of teaching. And I was like, I'm done with this. This is exhausting, guys. You guys are adults. Lead yourselves. I didn't say it like that, but that's where it came to, and they're doing it. And they bring food, and they do their thing. I don't touch their Sabbath school classroom. I just check in with them so that I can spend a lot more of my wheels and my time in that church body and in other initiatives to get more gathered into that space. Be consistent. We talked about the consistency, building the trust. This was huge. This was huge for us, by the way. Never leave a Sabbath without a new contact. That was one of my goals. And when I actually focus on this goal, I would walk away anywhere from 1 to 5 new contacts every single Sabbath. Now, some of them were visitors. It's not like they were but you know what they did? As I would tell them, I'm glad you're in town. If you come back again, I would love to have, right? And I have. I've actually seen people who were just there on a quick job or visiting family. They've come back. It's amazing. I've actually, side note, had several people show up at our church and become part of our congregation as young adults because they found us on our social medias. I got a direct message, started having a communication with a young girl who was moving from New York. She's getting her doctorate. She's a young doctor, young physician, moving to the area. I had no idea who this girl was, but we communicated on socials. I knew what Sabbath she was showing up, and when she got there, I knew who it was, and I could give her a hug and talk to her. So the socials do work, by the way. I'm just not here to tell you, you have to do that. I don't think there's one way to do it. I think there's multiple ways to do it, but I think the principles of the consistency are actually your biggest help. Never leave a Sabbath without a new contact. Be intentional. Reach deep and with the highest quality intention. It's going to be so much more beneficial for you guys. And I learned this the hard way because I did way too many initiatives in that first 6 months and I crashed and burned real hard. I needed to slow down. God actually told me to slow down, and I did, and it was good. So that I can regroup and figure out how we continue to develop a Sabbath school and a group and a community that want to spend time together. And they want to be together. But most important, they want to learn about God together. They want to support each other. They want to pray for one another. And so we're regrouping a little bit, and that's okay. Remember the failure part? We need to fail a few times, and we do need to land on our faces and our behinds a few times. It is actually a critical piece of developing these ministries and loving on people, is maybe doing it wrong once in a while, and maybe offending somebody once in a while, asking for forgiveness, and moving on. There is no need to make a mistake in organizing the work. So let us go to the Word of God for guidance. Gospel Workers, page 158. There's no reason that we should be making mistakes in just a very clear, concise, organizational way of how we communicate, okay? Now, at the end of the day, I'm going to pull it back all the way, and I'm going to say it over and over again. It's still about the relationship. It's still about actually loving from your heart and your soul these young people. If you do not have that, these are just processes. This is just a business plan, okay? That's great. I believe God is a God of order, is he not? He delegated everything in such an orderly fashion when he spoke this world into existence. Everything works in conjunction with the next. Our bodies, our hearts, our rhythms, everything in creation was created with order. And I love that God also created in my heart a desire for order and communication and processes, because that tells me God loved me enough to know that this was important to us as humans. He knows this is how we function. He knows that we do well when we have order and expectation. It's actually, side note, why it is we get a little too comfortable sometimes. We do like what's expected. We do have to press out and innovate. Yep, there's space for that, but there is a reason that we have a God of organization.
I loved what Danielle said about empowerment and involvement when it comes to young adult ministry. She pointed out that these are not the future leaders of the church. They should be the present leaders now who are actively involved and leading in ministry. So what about you? What stood out from this message for you? And when the episode finishes in another minute or two, please turn off your audio player for 5 or 10 minutes and just pause and reflect. What's your big takeaway from this presentation? How can you carry it into your own ministry? These quiet moments of reflection often lead us to our next breakthrough. So I encourage you to take a few minutes and shut off the noise and just reflect. Well, that's it for this episode. We'd love to hear from you. You can send an email to podcast@propelconference.org. And please join us for this upcoming Propel Conference coming to Silver Spring, Maryland, April 12 to 15. Registration is now open at propelconference.org. We're looking forward to seeing you there. Special thanks to Danielle Farrell for speaking at the 2025 Propel Conference and to the Salt and Light Project for sponsoring this episode. This has been the Propel Podcast, inspiration and innovation to grow your church. The Propel Podcast is produced by the Sermon View crew, and the event recording services were provided by Adventist Learning Community. I'm Larry Witzel, wishing you God's richest blessing in your own evangelistic journey. Please join us again next time for another episode of the Propel Podcast.